Good afternoon and welcome. I'm really excited about this webinar that we're about to do, our first one in a series, and we'll just give it a few minutes for people to join. Whilst you're waiting, familiarise yourself with the format around this webinar. You can ask questions and things in the chat. That's the way of communicating. There'll be no audio feedback to me, and we've turned that off. So I'll be taking you through on a journey today. So we'll just give it a moment or two for people to join in, and then I'll take you on the exponential journey. Okay, so I'm going to get straight stuck in, and we're going to start off with just those housekeeping bits. So questions absolutely are welcome. Please add them in the chat window, and one of our team is going to do a roundup at the end and see if we can answer a few of them, if we've got some time, or even if I can answer them, I'll give it my best crack. And there is going to be a replay of the webinar, so that'll be sent to your email. Also, the sign-up options to be able to be part of the whole series of webinars, the half dozen that we're going to do over the next 90 days or so. Just a technical piece. If you do get a spinning wheel, then just refresh your page and hopefully it will reconnect to the services, but know that it is being recorded. So if we do have any issues, the re-recording will come out to you, and hopefully that will be nice and clear so that you don't miss any of the vital content that we're going to be covering. So in today's session, which, as I said, is the first one, we're going to really be covering off what are exponentials, sort of the basics. It's quite a difficult concept to get your head around. We've been brought up in a linear world with linear thinking, the sort of linear strategies and growth and things for business. And we're now at this real turning point. They call it the near curve of exponentials, where it goes from deceptive to disruptive. And in the next 7 years, we're going to see more change than we have done in the last 300 years. I mean, it's going to be profound. We'll then explore a few technologies in action. So these exponential technologies, what's happening? What's the impact to us in terms of health, retail, education, society, all of these things, what's really happening? So beyond the technology, but what's the impact for us as human beings? Hopefully we'll stimulate a little bit of your thinking in a different way, from 10% to 10x, and the types of mindsets that you'll need for that. We'll understand where you can start to leverage technology and these exponentials inside your organization, perhaps some of the challenges you're facing, how to overcome them, and begin to have the right behaviors and attitudes, processes and structures to leverage them. Understand those mindsets for thriving. We're going to share our proven framework for innovation and growth designed for exponential times. I think that's a critical thing here, is what we've used yesterday to get to where we've got to today. All of those strategies, all of the thinking, it's not going to be super helpful. What we need to do is understand very large thinking at scale, not only technologists, but humanitarian attributes, futurists. How can we embrace experimentation to really thrive in exponential times? We've got some bonuses that we'll share. A global opportunities report that's been put together by 3 amazing organizations that are linked to the global goals and the SDGs. And then we've collected 9 exclusive bits of content for you, resources, tools, assets that normally are only available. In fact, I'll take you through a few of those now. They're normally only available in our actual innovation programs. So we've got project canvases, we've got custom meditation tracks for creativity, we've got an introduction to 3 horizon thinking. If you haven't come across that before, by the end of the series, it will be a familiar area for you. It's something that will change the way you think, the way you operate, the way you will develop new propositions, new products, how you're going to go to market will change the way you think. Thinking at scale worksheets, mindset scorecards, aligning your ideas to the global goals. Something that's also really interesting is around how do you know what a good idea even looks like? Which ones to back, which ones not? How do you get stakeholders inside your organization, whether that's employees, partners, suppliers, or the crowd, to actually believe in the idea and follow it through the dips? We have a weighted mapping matrix that we're going to share with you for that. Worksheets about creating 10x partnerships, incentive prize workshops, and most importantly, something I'm really excited about is my new book, which is called Moonshot Innovation. And we've got a special offer for you today, which if you order a pre-order copy, we're going to discount that from $12.99 to $5.99 for you. And that's coming out next summer. So I'm super excited about sharing some of these goodies at the end of the series for you. Little sort of background for those of you who don't know me. I'll just give you perhaps an insight into my summer of the year, what's happened in maybe the last 90 days. So in the top left-hand side, you'll see me with a chap. Some you might recognize him. His name's Peter Diamandis. He's one of the most inspirational people, and his mission is to inspire 1 million entrepreneurs and each one of them to positively impact over 1 billion people. And he does that through a range of his organizations. So he's the founder of Singularity University. He's got Human Longevity Organization, Planetary Resources, really active individual. He's one of Forbes 50 top leaders in the world at the moment. And I get to spend 4 days a year with him in Toronto because we have the same coach, which is Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach. It's been profound impact for me over the last 4 or 5 years. And I'll also be spending a few days in January at the Abundance Summit, where just a couple of hundred of us are going to be immersed into exponential technologies, what's coming in the next 5 to 10 years, and how can we implement them. And I'm going to share those with you, some of my insights in one of the webinar series. Next along, you'll see it says the Garage. That's actually the Innovation Lab at Google headquarters in California. I spent a bit of time there whilst I was actually at Singularity University. It was an executive program, the only place in the world that you can learn about all these exponential technologies. Absolutely fantastic place. The graduation there at the top right is me, Pepper, the robot. Moving on to the next row is another robot. It looks like a garbage bin, but actually it is in a hotel I stayed in. It's been there for 4 years. And it's replaced the room service. So it brings you your water bottles, your toothbrushes, your room service, and it's fully autonomous. So it helps itself into the lift, guides itself down the corridors, phones the room outside. You come and get your piece, and you say thank you. Next one along, the little white object in my hand. That's the first 3D printed object in space. It was a ratchet spanner. It was a project that came out at Singularity University. In fact, the two other things that I'm holding, the next one along is an interesting object. It's part of a Boeing engine, and it was designed by AI. So they gave it a few parameters. It then designed the shape, and then it was 3D printed. And that was created a mold to then cast. So really interesting convergence of different technologies. The next one is actually a brick, and no surprising, it's a brick, but it's actually a moon dust brick, and it's 3D printed with moon dust. Not real moon dust, but a replica of the moon dust. That's an amazing opportunity there. Instead of taking resources and objects and the things that cost a lot to take from the Earth out into space to construct, an opportunity to construct with the resources and materials in space will open up the new frontier. Moving through into the next one, that room, a couple of weeks ago, my team and I were in Vienna working with UNIDO, which is United Nations Industrial Development Organization. And we took them through our LEAPS process, generating insights, ideas, prototyping the new, in their case, messaging and propositions, and trying to strengthen their brand, how they engage with their audience, in their case, member states, the media, and the prototypes were tested on the final day. So a really amazing process that normally takes months and months of work. Within a number of days, we were actually live seeing the stream of what we created, testing it with the Swiss member state, the German member state, representative, together with also someone from CNN and Thomson Reuters. And that was dramatic, just in a few days. Bottom left, and we'll cover this a little bit later, and I think we've got a few colleagues here. Welcome from Unilever. This was a day with the Dove deodorants team, looking at how exponential technologies can future-proof and empower the brand, and how do we think slightly differently. The one where we're all kind of moonshot pointing, that's our inaugural group of facilitators that we're training at the moment to be certified LEAPS people. And they flew in for a week to spend with us in London through that process, from Zurich, from Chicago, from Toronto, from Spain. I think a few of you have joined us in this webinar, so hi. And it's been an amazing summer, as you can see. So immersing ourselves in innovation. We help organisations, whether that's United Nations and Unilever, to Simply Health, to Thomson Reuters, to early stage startups. How do you land innovation and embrace these exponential technologies? So moving forward, living in exponential times, I said that this near the curve, where we're going to see much more change in the next 7 years than we have done in the last 300. I am so excited about it. It represents such an opportunity for every person on the planet, whether you're in the deserts in Africa or you're in Silicon Valley. The opportunities are going to be democratized, that they're accessible to anyone to create new solutions, new ideas, have new challenges and overcome them with these technologies. So to start off with, I just want to run a quick poll just to see what your thoughts are here on what you believe at this stage before we get started. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes, or in fact seconds, because it shouldn't take very long. To what degree do you believe technology and innovation are critical drivers to achieve an abundant and sustainable future? So I'll just give you a moment to just respond to that. Okay, good. I think they're in, and in fact, although we're re-recording this replay, we had about 50-50. We had 55% in extremely, 45% in highly, and 5 neutral. So let's see if we can shift and change that over the course of the next set of content and slides that we've got here now. So what is exponentials? It's a word that's used a lot. It's a bit like the word disruption. It's used everywhere. And transformation. I'll just take you through some of the basic elements of that. But linear, where we've come from, our thinking and our process, is where every step is similar to the one before. So in numerical terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I was to take 30 linear steps, if those steps were a meter, I'd be 30 meters further on. In exponentials, the critical difference is that each step is a doubling the step before. So it's really deceptive in the early stages, but then it's dramatic. So those same 30 steps in an exponential world, it'll be over 1 billion meters. So that's 26 times around the Earth. Now that is such a huge difference that we can't, it's so hard to comprehend what that difference is. And I want to bring it to life a little bit more in a few areas throughout today in this overview webinar session. One of the critical things that are driving many of these exponential technologies is the increase in computation power and computers. And this information is taken from Ray Kurzweil. He created the graph, and it showed the amount of computation power for the average £1,000 laptop. So if we go back to 2010, the computational power of that laptop at $1,000 would be about 100 billion calculations a second. That's equivalent to a mouse brain. Might not sound like a lot in a mouse brain, but that's more computational power than the US had when they were going to the moon. So that's quite a lot of opportunity of computational power. If we go forward just a slight bit to 2023, that's 10 billion calculations a second, equivalent to the human brain. And then forward just a slight bit more, about 2049, 2050, $1,000 laptop will be equivalent in the computational power as the entire human race connected brains. And this is drawn from 5 major paradigms, and it's often this nesting and convergence of different technologies that can continue this explosion and exponential increase. So whether that's electromechanical computing, relays, vacuum tubes, transistors, and now integrated circuits, all of those paradigms, that's now what we're looking at within the calculation here, which is really amazing. Those things that are powering faster, cheaper computers are now linking to the opportunities within networks, sensors, 3D printing, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. All of those are being empowered by this faster computing power and computational power. And we're going to be shifting from normal transistors, and we're going to be going into quantum and quantum computers. And that's perhaps another subject for another webinar. But what this does is it starts to uncover and create unexpected consequences in different business models. And this is where disruption often comes in. And this is what we're going to start to see more and more of as time goes on. So when we shift from that theoretical to what's happening in the real world, I want to bring it to life a little bit. What does it feel like? And more importantly, what can we learn from this? So I've got a few examples I'm going to take us through. And couple here, one of the big things is about access to funding and access to capital. So historically, this was who you knew, venture capital, angel investors, and you would have to produce checks, go after them, lots of things. But we've seen recently now, in the last perhaps 6 or 7 years, crowdfunding in different guises, in different ways. And in 2015, it was worth about 15 billion of available funds. In 2020, they're estimating that'll be about 100 billion, which is equivalent to about 1.8 times the global venture capital industry today. So that democratizes access to funding to anyone that has a good idea and can use some of these crowdfunding platforms to be able to do that. Another interesting one is about sensors. Today, we're at about 50 billion sensors. We're going to be shifting in the next couple of years to 1 trillion. Now that is, again, going to change everything. Everything's going to be chipped up, the Internet of Things of sensors, be that your toothbrush and your fridges of today, to clothing, to the soil. We will be able to know the answers to everything. What will be interesting is, do we know which is the right question to ask? And that will be a more fundamental thing that we need to embrace for exponential leadership. And the one just snuck in above there, I'll just give you a little overview of that one. And it was during the Obama administration, and he signed the US Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act, HR 2262. And what that brought into law is allowing for the legal ownership and transfer of asteroid materials. So we're going to be shifting from thinking, how much is left on this planet? How much have we got? Oh, we've only got 50 years left of consumption of oil or of this material, of platinum or cobalt or various fundamental materials that are used often in a lot of these technologies, in robotics, in our mobile phones. Instead of thinking what's left on Earth, there is far more proliferation out in the universe, asteroids. And can we get there? Can we effectively mine it? Can we bring it back? Can we construct in space? All of these are questions that we're seeing a law change. And taking us back to Peter Diamandis, one of his organizations, Planetary Resources, they'll be landing on the first one, as I understand it, in 2023 and starting to mine initially. They're looking for fuel to launch other spacecraft, once a bit like gas stations in space, so predominantly looking for water. So the resources are going to be quite prolific. So this next one's quite interesting, and this links to not just crowdfunding, but crowdsourcing of solutions. So the Tricorder X Prize, this was launched in 2012, 5 years ago. And it was a contest that, a bit like Star Trek, where you have a handheld device. It had 3 basic rules that they were looking to do. They wanted it to be able to detect 12 different diseases, from diabetes to pneumonia to anemia, and do that very effectively in a short space of time, and be compatible and done remotely via the internet and a smartphone or tablet. So that home-based diagnosis would be available to anyone, anywhere in the world. So that really would be a game changer. So it sounds like quite a tall order, but actually 312 teams competed in 38 countries to that challenge. And after whittling it down, there was actually a winner announced this year. And this is now active and possible. So that's a real game changer of how technology, but what's interesting is it's no longer about big organizations, big companies with big R&D budgets that can hire the best minds, or about governments working on these big innovations and big changes. What's happening is it could be a 13-year-old in India that has the understanding or the idea to solve these big challenges and these big problems. So I want to introduce you to that thinking that shifts from resources you have access to today, perhaps within your organization or who you know, and start to think about the connections and the possibilities of leveraging the crowd for solutions. Really a different way of thinking in exponential times. Another one, just moving up the pace, and this is a convergence of 3D printing, the little device, together with your mobile phones plus AI, to essentially look for how we can solve the problem of pancreatic cancer, in the fact that often the symptomatic information coming in is often frequently too late. You know, we can't diagnose it early enough. So these guys have created something that in initial clinical studies shows quite promising, and that it controls the amount of light into your eyes, taking a photograph of your eye and being able to look at that in certain levels to the white part of the eye to decide, is this somebody who might have pancreatic cancer or not, to a high degree of accuracy, 89+% accuracy. So these are starting to come on board. I want to share with you now another poll as an opportunity for you to interact here. So I've curated 15 different opportunities for you to see some other exponentials across health, food, retail. So this is whether it's Indian farmers using AI for better crops, passenger drones, autonomous being launched in Dubai. Dubai again is launching the Robocops, whether it's implants for the memory and minds, or a robot that can iron your clothes. I'm just going to give you a few moments to have a look at that and decide. Please vote, and then I'll share with you a couple of the videos. Great, they're starting to come in already. That's fantastic. Okay, so what we have, by the looks of it, I think the first one that you've gone for is number 2, the passenger drones launched in Dubai. So each one of these is only about a minute or so. I will play this, so please enjoy. Here we go. First one. So the second one that we've got here for you that you wanted was the mind-enhancing implants. And remember, if you've got any questions, please do add them into the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So here, coming up next, is the video on mind implants for enhancing memory. So hopefully we are back after that little just thin slice. Now, what we're going to do for you is all of these that we've curated for you, we're going to share these on our Leaps Innovation LinkedIn group. You'll get a link of that in the email as well. So you'll be able to watch all of these things, whether that's growing meat in tanks or it's Tokyo that have given a chatbot residency, or it's Alibaba using robots to be able to meet the demands of their massive orders that they're creating. So we will share those with you. But hopefully that's given you just a little insight as to what's going on and what's happening. I talked about Alibaba, and I want to just introduce you some of the effects of the last 10 years in retail. And let's remember, this is still in deceptive phase, really, before this next 7-year period where we accelerate at such a profound rate. And yet we've seen some of the largest retailers' actual market value massively drop. And we've seen so many organizations. In fact, I think the now life expectancy of the FTSE 500 that used to be about 64 years is dropping down to about 15 years. The life expectancy of the Fortune 500, 15 years. I mean, that is just a dramatic effect. In fact, so many of them that are going to be in there just in a few years' time haven't even been created yet. So we're seeing Sears go from 27 billion value down to only 1 billion, 96% change in 10-year period. And yet Amazon, on the other hand, have gone up nearly 2,000% in market value, really profound. And then just very quickly, Alibaba, absolutely phenomenal. Just 10 days ago, what they managed to achieve on their Singles Day sales, 12 billion worth of sales in the first 2 hours, 25 billion in the first 24 hours. So Singles Day, they started back in 2009 just with 27 different merchants. This year they had 140,000 different brands and merchants taking part, and they had orders from all over the world. So 225 countries, 800 plus million orders processed. What's even more profound is the fact that when this was launched at midnight, the first deliveries were actually being fulfilled 12 minutes and 18 seconds after the order was processed. I mean, that is just dramatic impact. And some of the videos we've got on the pre-slide that we'll share in the group shows you how they've managed to do some of these things. Just amazing. And if we look at it, really, those sales in 24 hours are the same number as Sears, JCPenney, Nordstrom, Macy's combined market value. I mean, that's a massive shift. That's certainly disruption. One of the other things that Peter talks about a lot is this rising billions. And that's by 2020, where we're going to be having 3 to 5 billion new customers. And what we talk about that, new consumers accessing the internet. So what are they going to purchase? They've never uploaded anything before. They've never invented anything. They've never sold anything. They've never bought anything. What is this mega surge to the global economy that, although many of them are going to be in Africa, in India, in China, and the developing world, with low income, when we aggregate that together, it represents trillions of new dollars flowing into the economy. So what are we going to do about that? What changes are we going to make to our products, to our services, to where we're going to geographically shift and change for opportunities? These people are going to be coming on where they're going to have access to the same things we do. They're going to have access to Google, so all the information on the planet. They're going to have access to 3D print through the cloud, anything they invent and want. They're going to have access to Amazon's web services, to IBM Watson, to Microsoft Cognitive services, so they can plug into AI. They're going to have access to crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. Are these going to be our new competitors? Are they going to disrupt us, or are they going to be our new customers? What are we looking at within our business models, and how can we leverage that as we move forward? Really interesting. So I'd just like to now run that poll again really quickly that we did at the start in terms of, have we shifted your thinking? So I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to have a little look at there. Great. Thank you. And wow. Yeah, we've had quite a dramatic effect. So now Extremely is up at 88%. So that's really interesting shift just from that, 10, 15 minute insight to some of the exponentials that are happening. So what I want to do now is shift us in terms of, those are exponentials. I want to deliver a term to you called moonshots and moonshot thinking. And rather than me try to describe what these are, I'm going to hand over to Astro Teller, who works at X, formerly Google X, and let him introduce what moonshot thinking is. And hopefully you'll enjoy this. Every time I watch it, I certainly tingle, and hope you enjoy it too. Here we go.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Galileo is such a hero, in thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that he had, that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on the first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on that next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. One of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling on what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what? I think I can build a space elevator, and let's go and do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people. We stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I do. Even though I've seen it 100 times, it has such a profound effect on everyone we show it. To really believe that just a few people can have such a profound effect on our future. So I want to inspire all of us to think big, to think about 10x, and really moonshots this kind of term that, yes, it's about addressing a huge problem. It's about leveraging breakthrough technology or exponential technologies and proposing those radical solutions and going from 10% thinking to 10x thinking. But for us at Leaps Innovation, it's about moonshots for good. So how can we organize ourselves and inspire ourselves around not only having things that will have huge commercial opportunities and ensuring that we are looking at H2 and H3 from the three horizon framework thinking, but that we do so with a good conscience, with ethical conscience about what are the real grand challenges that are existing in the world. And at Singularity University, they often talk about, if you want to be a billionaire, help a billion people. And equally, the world's biggest challenges are the world's biggest opportunities. And that's what I want to bring to you, a little bit of a headline today in terms of the global goals. For those of you that are familiar with them, absolutely great. Those that aren't, go to globalgoals.org and start to look at it, start to embrace it. And what it is, think of it as the to-do list for the planet. People, planet, prosperity, how do we build in a world of abundance? And there are 17 goals ranging from no poverty, zero hunger, gender equality, right through to industry, innovation, infrastructure, sustainable cities, responsible consumption, all of these things. And there are a series of targets underneath them. We came about them when we were working with United Nations volunteers. We were doing a global brand repositioning project for them back in 2015. And I delivered a keynote to the entire UN collection of the chiefs of communications. It was at their general conference in Vienna. And it was a great opportunity to start to help the UN think about the brand strategy behind these global goals and how not only the UN can speak as one voice, but how we can take every activity in every corporate, every company, every person of CSR or their siloed operation of sustainability to have one goal, one voice of how we need to do this. So this is something we're very passionate about. A lot of the projects that we're involved in do align with these, and we hope to inspire people to think bigger, to think exponential and think globally. Very quickly, because we're just over halfway now, we're going to share this with you. It's the Global Opportunity Report for 2017. We'll share that as a PDF copy at the end of the webinar through the recording. And look in there and you will find opportunities for those Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 new ideas. Where are the big things in terms of the products and services we should be thinking about, the solutions where there's the most value. So I think that's a huge opportunity there within that. I want to shift now into looking at how do we take all of this information, take what's going on in the world, hop on to those exponentials, because that's what we need to do. We need to recognize them, understand where they're going to be in a few years' time, and develop things to meet them where they are. And I'm going to let Peter talk about his 6 Ds. And this is the fundamental frameworks of how to embrace exponential technology. Do get a pen if you've got one handy and a notebook, and take some notes on this, because it's really an excellent starter that you can think about within your organization. So here you go. Welcome to Peter, my good friend.
Hey, it's Peter D. Madness with your Abundance Espresso Shot. Today, I want to teach you a little something that I put together at Singularity University. It's called the 6 Ds of exponentials. And it's a way to think about exponential technologies and how it's affecting our world. So here are the 6 Ds. Number 1, digitized. Anything that becomes digitized, becomes an information science, hops on Moore's law, becomes something that can grow exponentially. So as bio becomes digitized, literally, biotechnology is growing in power at exponential rates. The second D is that it's deceptive. When something is growing exponentially, it's deceptive in its growth. That's how literally Kodak went out of business, because the digital camera deceptively snuck up on them. Because as you start to multiply and double very small numbers, 0.01, 0.02, 0.04, and so forth, it looks like a flat line until it really starts at the knee of the curve doubling and it explodes on you. And when it does explode into the scene, you then have disruption. And that's how digitized cameras disrupted literally the world of Kodak and how, the digitization of videos disrupted Blockbuster. You have all of these examples over and over again. The next is dematerialization, how literally exponential technologies are dematerializing industries and dematerializing products. So your cell phone has dematerialized the camera, right? I don't walk around with a digital camera anymore. I've got it inside my cell phone. Nor do I have a GPS on my car. I've got it inside my cell phone. These devices have become dematerialized into your technology. Another thing that exponential technologies does is it literally demonetizes. It takes the money out of things. So when you look at Google, demonetized the research business. It's free now. How many other things have demonetized? Craigslist demonetized putting ads in newspapers. They took the money out of the newspapers and stuck it into your pocket. The final thing is democratization. Exponential technologies democratize the ability for you to change the world. So when you think about exponential tech, think about the 6 Ds and how it can literally empower you to do extraordinary and transformational things in the world.
I hope you enjoyed that little insight there into how to start to embrace exponential technologies, where we need to look at what we digitize first that can lead into deceptive and disruptive opportunities. And for some of you, if you're already in media and communications, these things are already right in it. Automotive is just starting to be digitized with autonomous vehicles. That's on the crest of the wave. But real opportunities lie in things like education, healthcare. They're waiting to be swallowed up by these exponential technologies in terms of the digitization that's happening. We now have in China the first AI treatment center. That's another great video that I could share with you about what's happening over there. Really amazing things. So another bit that I want to give you is 10 top tips for shifting your behavior and actions today in your organization. And let's remember, we've been brought up in linear organizations, linear thinking, and growth came from these types of things. And I want you to do less of this, more of something else. So less of learn by researching, internal resource bias, protective of IP, about that being competitive advantage, working in departmental silos, and that can be a departmental silo as an industry. How often do we collaborate with our industry partners to up it for everyone? That's linear thinking, not exponential thinking, that there is an abundance for everyone. Rigid time and effort, managing risk, all of those types of things. I want you to shift to start to learn by doing. And that kind of approach that we can even look at leveraging the global crowd rather than our internal biases. What's available both in terms of funding, not what we can get budget internally for. In terms of the solutions, not who can we employ and who can we attract, but who can we inspire? Who can we inspire with a big transformational purpose? How can we think about open source, sharing economy, collaborate in rapid environments? It's exactly what we do at Leaps Innovation, in terms of we get collective people together for a short space of time, instead of it broken out over different meetings, get everyone together, even the audience, collaborate on things and rapidly test those ideas before you've risked too many resources. It's one way of saying, how do you do more with less? It's that kind of approach. Very fluid. It's about contribution and results and proactively driving that change. Yes, embracing it, but take more risks and give the freedom for experimentation. One key indicator, how many experimentations have you done this week, today, this month, this year? Those sorts of things are about entrepreneurial leadership. And one of the subjects for another webinar is about exponential leadership. And we'll be joined by a guest, the CEO, Jody Rogers from Leaps People, who'll be talking with me a little bit more about the future of work and what kind of exponential leadership looks like and the qualities that we need to look for and embrace. That shifts me a little bit into mindsets for moonshot innovation. We've defined 8 of them here at Leaps. We're going to share a mindset scorecard with you. And this is this shift of mindset is a muscle. I don't want this to replace what your organization or your brand's values are, or your behaviors. This is how you think, how you approach things. And these words all very well and good. The scorecard brings it to life in terms of how are you looking for the behavior of that mindset to manifest. So we'll be sharing that with you as well. What I want to do now in the last sort of run up for the last 15 minutes is just see if I can share a model, and it's a new model of how to land innovation in this exponential era, a way for you to get started, the way we do it at Leaps, to generate ideas, filter those ideas, develop prototypes and test them in an accelerated way. And this isn't just about agile. It's not a project management piece. It's not about software. It's about in every area of your organization in terms of customer service, internal communications, recruitment, any area, the types of projects that we can take on is really interesting of how this kind of process and model for innovation can be done. So just to reiterate, innovation isn't an event. Even if we say, oh, let's go and do Leaps for a few days, that isn't it. It is a process, but it's enhanced with that right mindset. It's not, oh, we've got innovation, it's in a lab, it's a physical space. No, that isn't what it is. It's how do we take a process that is built for exponential times with the right mindsets, with the right people, with our 10x and big thinking to embrace moonshot innovation so that we can really land that. And during the series of these webinars, I want to share more and more depth about that proof of framework for innovation, of how we've helped organizations like Simply Health go from no innovation, no product launches, 140-year-old brand, to being able to embed that both in terms of the structure, the recruitment, the operating rhythm, and how they bring new propositions to market in an accelerated pace. Really exciting opportunities there. What I've got for you is another little video that I'm going to share. And this is an explainer of what Leaps is all about, our 5-phase process. So how do you create and build new propositions without it taking large investments and months of time?
Timelines are tight. Budgets are under scrutiny. New ideas take too much time and money to validate. Studies suggest only 3% of UK businesses can progress an idea to market in under 6 months. 69% of businesses take at least a year to prototype an idea. 40% of today's Fortune 500 will not even exist in 10 years' time. Introducing Leaps, a proven fast-track innovation program designed to create, prototype and test a new concept in under 1 week. Landscape. Define your ambitions. Establish your context and share expert knowledge. Envisage. Use proven cutting-edge processes and creative techniques to generate accelerated and collaborative solutions. Agreement. Forget endless debates. Discover clear and decisive decision-making. Prototype. Develop the chosen concepts, ideas and solutions into real, customer-facing, testable assets in only 24 hours. Screening. Conduct live-streamed one-to-one interviews with real customers observed by the Leaps team to collate actionable insights. Leaps is about dynamic, creative and solution-focused methods. Embrace and experience. Accelerated idea generation. Collaborative decision-making. Lightning-fast concept testing. Rapid validation. Customer involvement from week 1. Better access to your future customers. Most importantly, transform what could be a 6-month-long process into 1 inspiring week. Leaps. Accelerated innovation.
So hopefully that short little animated video gave you a little bit of insight to what we here at Leaps are doing in terms of accelerating innovation. And we've been doing that, as I said, for a range of different organizations, developing go-to-market strategies, testing the positioning, developing new ideas altogether. And it's a way for how to join the gaps between, you know, different silos internally, between you and your suppliers and partners, between you and your customers of tomorrow, starting to involve them in that process so you co-create together. It's a really fascinating way. And I'd just like to share with you what we did recently with Dove Deodorant's team. It was awesome to work with them. I'm excited to work potentially in the new year on some really big opportunities to make a profound effect on the planet, potentially within the packaging area, We've got a 2-minute video here that I'm just going to share with you to let them tell you about their experience of a one day with us. Today we've been here in London with Unilever and we've been working with the Dove team. So we had a few objectives with today. One was to inspire them to help the way in which they think, but we also had to have a clear set agenda of what we wanted to achieve. And that was making decisions, making commitment to the ideas that are going to have breakthroughs.
It's been about trying to future-proof our brand, thinking about how exponential technology may impact what we do.
How to leapfrog potential dramatic changes that are coming in the next 5 to 10 years. The changes we need to aim for should also be much bigger.
What is it that we should be launching and why is it better for consumers?
Today was really interesting in terms of the journey that we went on. For some, it was quite unexpected. We've got to rethink what we do.
Be forced to think the impossible and then think that the impossible could be possible. Shoot for the stars and maybe you will kind of reach the moon.
Not once have I, in my career at Unilever, thought about how technology might influence what we do from a deodorant's point of view.
It was quite an inspiring day. The way that the methodology work is giving a step back and really looking into the scenario in a different way. So I think that's really valuable.
My mind's kind of racing about 1,000 miles an hour going, could we use these kind of workshops or these kind of techniques to think about these areas or these big challenges?
I love the commitment that they had, and we came up with some really interesting ideas that hopefully we can go forward now, prototype and test. So the next step is actually the domino effect, that those individuals are now inspired to be able to think differently and more strategically about what technology's impact will be on the projects they're running. Thank you. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of insight into what a day with us might feel like. One of the areas that I'm quite passionate about in terms of how to leverage the crowd to stop us thinking about what resources we have and the fight for those internal resources, whether that's financing and investment or resources in terms of access to intelligence, to people, who can we attract in and retain, to thinking about how we might leverage the crowd in a slightly different way so that we back none of the risk and we only back the winning solutions with incentive prizes. So this platform HeroX, we will uncover a little bit more depth in some other webinar sessions, but there's this overview. It's a way where you can put up your challenge and ask the audience, ask the crowd how they might solve it. And that's up to them. HeroX is a version below the X Prize that we saw the tricorder, or you might be familiar with the X Prize in terms of in 1996 about space when Peter launched that's now become Virgin Galactic many years on. HeroX allows access for you and me to be able to put challenges on there. We have helped a number of organizations. We did one in Toronto earlier this year to help them prepare an idea to go on to platforms like this. How do they form the challenge? What does it look like? What's the materials? What's the criteria? And looking at that support. So that's something that we can help organizations with and something we really enjoy doing. Fundamentally to all of this, what are we passionate about? Why do we actually exist? Yes, we have a process about innovation. It's built on 20 years of working with different organizations about their brand, about their positioning, about launching new innovations. What we want to do is unite, inspire, and accelerate the best of all humanity. That's fundamentally important to us, is that it's about humanity, not just about the technology. Yes, it's about accelerated because that's the times and the era that we're in, but we want to unite people. It's about machines and us, technology and us, not one to take over the other. That's the world I believe in, one where we are going to thrive, where the quality of life is going to be better and better for us all. So that's the opportunities that we're looking for and how we can inspire organizations in the same way. So just to recap in the last 5 minutes, and then I'll come on to a couple of the questions that you've asked. We covered some of the exponentials. What are they? Some technologies in action, how we can shift our thinking from 10% to 10x, start to think about moonshots, understand why leveraging exponential technologies is something you can do and start to think about both in behaviors and start to digitize things. Not just go paperless, but look for how your product can become more digitized, look for how your service can become more digitized, how your marketing can, because all of these things start to then build through the deceptive period and lead to exponential growth. Understand the different methodologies and mindsets that you're going to need to thrive, and we'll be covering much more about exponential leadership in future ones, and share just that top line view of our proven framework built for the innovation and growth right now. We'll share with you the Global Opportunities Report and some of those goodies that I mentioned before. Excuse me, but actually what's coming up next. So I want to invite you, and you'll see over on the right hand side the opportunity to sign up to our next series of these webinars. The next one's on the 14th of December in a few weeks' time. I'll be so excited to share with you deeper thoughts on exponential leaderships and mindsets for innovation. And over the course of these, it will really be everything you need to know about embedding innovation and to unlock value for tomorrow, and doing that with limited resources. So if you know someone else who's also having trouble innovating or disrupting successfully, please invite them to join our webinar. The whole series is free. We're going to have special guests on a few of them. In fact, in January, when I go up to Beverly Hills and I spend that time at the Abundance with Astro Teller and Peter and Tony Robbins and people like this, where we're looking at how exponential technologies are driving the future. I'll come back and share some of those insights. So please do come and join us for some of those future webinars. The goodies that are going to come. So yes, these are going to be creative meditation tracks. There's going to be our big ideas weighted mapping matrix to evaluate ideas. But interestingly, one of the questions, what books do I recommend reading? Well, other than my own, which I'm so excited to tell you about and launch, which is Moonshot Innovation. At the moment, we're interviewing a series of game changers that are already embracing on a global scale exponential technologies. So you'll get to understand what's happening, what's going on, what you can do about it, and how you can positively affect the lives of 1 billion people inside Moonshot Innovation's book. So exclusive for you to the end of the month. If you want to purchase one of these and pre-order, we're doing it at only $5.99. It's coming out next summer at $12.99. So please do that. It's at moonshotinnovation.co.uk. So that's one of the books. Some of the other books I recommend, things like 0 to 1, really excellent. Blink, I love Malcolm Gladwell. I think he's really good. Of course, as you've seen, big fan of Peter. So he's written Bold and Abundance, great books. Lean Startup by Eric Rice, another great book. So yeah, perhaps I'll share with you some of my Audible list, that if you're interested from that question. One of the other ones, what sort of projects is Leap's really good for? Well, actually, we have 2 opportunities with Leaps. We have these one-day programs, discovery days. They can be about how do you accelerate an idea or project, develop new propositions, so the ideation phases, how do you prioritize different projects, maybe future-proofing your brand and thinking about what exponential technologies can drive innovation like we did with Dove. We can do bespoke, one-day programs. So if you want to engage with Mike at discoverleaps.com, and if you've got a challenge, we'll be up for seeing how we can support you with that. Then we have our sort of fuller programs. These are typically between 2 and 4 days, where we go right from the phases of generation of ideas, understanding the landscape. What are we trying to achieve? What's our ambition? What are the key questions? Do some customer journey mapping, right through to then envisaging solutions and ideas with a 10x thought process, exponential technology thought process in there. Filter them, develop them, prototype them with some of our resources as well, and then test them live in the final day in front of that audience. And it's a profound effect. So we'd love to work with you on those. So as we come in conclusion, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent that will survive, but those that can best manage change. So we need to adapt, and our minds need to adapt. We need to build a learning capability, prepare ourselves for these exponential times. And I can't wait to do that with you. I'll share the offer on the right-hand side if you're wanting to go for the book. And in fact, anybody who pre-orders them, I'll do a signed copy for you as well, which will be interesting. So you'll see there. Any other questions that you might have, please ask them. Please share this on LinkedIn, on social media, your experiences. Any feedback would be great because we want to serve you. You can see our contact information there, our website, my LinkedIn address, email. Please feel free to contact me. And I can't wait to see how we can support you and the exponential future that we're going to create for all of us in this abundance and our moonshot innovations that we're going to go for. So thank you. I really appreciate you spending the time with us. And I can't wait to meet you again on the 14th of December. Although if some of you are tomorrow at the Bournemouth International Conference, I'm doing the keynote there for in front of 300 odd entrepreneurs. It's another piece. I'm very happy to come and do keynotes, speeches, and engage with your organizations to help them embrace, understand what's coming. Industry 4.0, innovation, brand strategy, these are all areas that I'm very comfortable and happy taking an organization through. Thanks again. You've been really great in your interactions, and enjoy the rest of your evening and weekend. Take care. Thank you.